Hello and welcome to Manor Lords. In this game you're going to be playing as a lord. You're sent by the king, but you govern the territory. It's going to be a delicate game. It's a medieval city builder that also forces you to balance, of course, your resources, trading with other regions, warfare, building an economy, taking care of all of your citizens. It's going to be a lot of work, but it is a good game. It's shaping up to be one. It's coming out on April 26th, so it's still a little bit ways away by the time that you might be watching this video. I'm going to start a new game and show you exactly what this is about. Now, in a specific way, you can set up your own coat of arms. You can go with, for example, one of the backgrounds, one of the icons, and, of course, one of the layouts. If you have a custom coat of arms, you can load that as well. I have done that, and in a separate video, I will show you exactly how to do that. For now, let's go with coat of arms. Let's go with this guy as my portrait, and my name is going to be Stealth. Now, once you start playing, you get a couple of different options on how you want to set the game up. There are a couple of different scenario templates. You can try to rise to prosperity. You can try to restore the peace. This is because 2 territories in the north are claimed. And once you start expanding, you can start challenging those barons, so basically the leaders of those territories, to take back control. Or you can be on the edge, survive all the attacks and reach the large town settlement. I'm going to go for restoring the peace. I want to go with a territory while also being at somewhat risk of coming under attack. This one is entirely peaceful, this one is more war-oriented. Now these are just scenario templates, and there will be more coming soon. If you want to set up your own template, for example, change the win condition, so change it to conquest or change it to endless play or growth, you can do that by using the different end goals. A lot of different sliders for you to play around with. I'm going to go with the default settings, and let's begin. My objective for this one is dominance. We're going to build up the town, the manor, hence Manor Lords, and when ready, press claims towards regions owned by your opponents. Of course, once you start laying claim to somebody else's territory, they might take offense, so you better be ready for battle. So this is going to be my manor. There's not a whole lot to look at, is there? We have a hitching post with an ox, we have a homeless people's tents, and over here we have some supplies and a bit of food. That's what we're going to be starting out with, but that is not what the result is going to be. Because we are going to build up a manor, a town. Hence, Manor Lords. And when ready, we're going to start claiming more regions, which other people won't like. So we're going to have to be ready for battle when we do that. I need to claim all the opponent's regions. Now, I am over here, basically, in the middle of nowhere. I've got a very nice forest around me, I have a couple of resources, and as you scroll out, or as you zoom out, you can see that I have wild animals. I have berries. Now, berries are noteworthy because they're seasonal. They don't grow in winter, and as such, you're going to have to plan when you want to harvest these. We also get a bit of an iron deposit, and we have a rich clay deposit. Some deposits are rich, and rich deposits, if you have the right resources or the right tech, can be mined indefinitely. Whereas, for example, this iron deposit is going to run out. Now, this is just one region. We're starting over here in Eigenau. You can rename that region as you see fit. There are a couple of other regions around, and you can see just how much of a map you have to play with. There are a couple of other gentlemen around. We have Hildebold von Berennoite, and I can do negotiations with him. We also have the Outlaws. The Dear Outlaws. I'm not going to drop any paragraphs here at the moment. Now, the Outlaws, of course, are not necessarily going to be your friends. Now, I'm starting here. And let's see what I can start with. Now, some things you need to know about this game. Over here on the top left, we have unassigned families. A family is essentially a worker unit. So if you want to have somebody chop down trees to gather resources, that goes with one family. If you want to have a farm, well, you can run that with one family, but it's a big farm, so multiple families on a farm would make it more efficient. If these people are unassigned, they'll just be doing transporting stuff as well as building buildings. So try to have at least one, ideally 2 families unassigned. Early game, you're not going to have that many, so you're going to have to pick what you want to work on. These people need houses, they need living space, and these are called burgage plots. A plot is going to allow a family to live there. If your plot's big enough, you can even house 2 of them. They can also be upgraded to have, for example, a little plot of carrots in their backyard. And that will give you additional food. My approval rating means how much population growth I can expect. You need to have at least 50%. And if you have more than 50%, you will slowly start to attract additional families. Can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. More workforce means more ability to expand, but it also means more mouths to feed. So you'll have to increase your production of food. Over here we have public order. If there is a degrading public order, you're going to find that people will turn into bandits. This is supposedly permanent, and as such, you're going to have to try and avoid a breakdown of public order. Now we have a little bit of regional wealth, and I can turn that into some variable resources, but I'll discuss more on that later. We have some livestock, exactly 1 ox. You can see the guy over here. He's essentially a transport unit. He's going to be dragging logs around if you want to start building things. And if you want to get more of them, you can. But at least early game, you'll be able to buy them using regional wealth. I only have 4 months until my supplies run out. I have a little bit of food and I have absolutely no fuel. Now fuel is going to be critical because if you don't have it, people are going to just freeze. Right now, it's nice, it's March, it's good spring weather. Summer's coming, autumn is coming, and then winter. You need to have a lot of firewood stored up. On the right hand side we have resources. These are construction resources, so things to build buildings and upgrade them. You got various sorts of food, and all of these will add into how much food you actually have. Some food you can use right away, such as bread or eggs or apples, but there are some other resources that you'll have to turn into edible food. A farm produces wheat. You're then going to have to turn that into something a bit more useful, because eating wheat, well, not too tasty. That is a sort of production tree that you'll be looking into. We also have some fuel. Right now I have a little bit of firewood, but I'm not actually producing any. As for crafting materials, there's a lot. There's grain, there's leather, there's wax, there's iron slabs. You can build a lot of things. And especially as your settlement tiers up, you'll be able to get more and more of these things built. Next we have commodities. The more your plots level up, the more of these demands they'll have. Early game, people are just happy to have a roof over their heads, but later game, they might want ale while they have that roof over their heads. And finally, we have the military. These are military resources, so let's say the amount of spears that you have. And this is going to be important because the more spears you have, the more people you can arm. And if you have insufficient amount of spears, well, you can call up your military or your militia, but they'll be mostly unarmed. So that's going to be a bit of a downer on the battlefield. Keep your military supplies stocked, and the more you have, such as shields or, for example, helmets, while they're not critical requirements, they can definitely make your battle experience a bit more pleasant. Now, let's start building things, because that is what this game is about. It is a medieval city builder, so let's get to work. What we're going to need are a couple of key resources. And first up, I need to have a resource where I can take down trees. Because timber, early game, is going to be very important to actually be able to build more buildings. It does note, however, that taking down trees is not a free activity. You will have to either replant the tree, or you're going to start looking into deforestation. So if I start to take down trees over here, it's entirely possible that my berry deposit just dies out because of deforestation. The same thing might be happening for wild animals here. So I want to have my hunting and gathering on this side, and I want to have my foresting, or, well, let's say deforesting, on this side. Now let's build a road first. Let's make sure that we have, yes, that we have a road over here. Thankfully, these are free. And now I can set up a logging camp. This is going to go here. And I can also, at the same time, set up a forester's hut. This is not critical early game, because it's going to allow you to plant new trees, but for now, well, I think we got plenty. So, let's make sure that this is going to get worked on. You can set how much of a priority you want it to be. Right now it's set to medium, that's the default. You can increase it or decrease it as long as you have enough people to work on things, and you find things to be in higher or lower priority. Let's also have a couple of houses set up. The residential tab allows you to build these burgage plots. Now, the burgage plots are flexible buildings, so they're not, for example, as some other city builders, just tiles that you click on. You can shape these as you want, and that is quite a nice development, because with that, for example, I can adjust this thing, and now I have 3 plots over here. This is just going to be 3 houses, but if you expand it a bit more, you can see that additional icon pop up. And let me just make it a bit longer. That little shed with the hammer indicates that there is room for expansion. So with this, I'm able to actually get that little backyard extension, if you will, where I might be able to build, let's say, a carrot farm, or raise some chickens, or have a goat for goat milk. In this case, I want to have these things be largely aligned, but I can't really spend too much timber on it, because I don't have that much. So let's first have at least a couple houses. Yeah, this should be big enough for now. It's going to be 2 houses. It's not terribly large, but it's also not going to cost a terrible amount of resources. There we go. Now, that's at least some of the housing set up. I also want to be able to start gathering that food and the berries. So wild animals as well as foraging. Let's set that up relatively close to where I needed to go. So that's going to go over there. And the hunting camp is going to go here. The hunting camps have a limitation in the sense that you don't want to kill off the whole herd. If you do, there's not a whole lot left to hunt. And that is going to come back to bite you, because it can be a renewable resource if you let them actually grow back. Unfortunately, if you are in a bit of a hurry, or your crop failure is causing you to have to hunt down all the animals, well, you might be forced to take out the whole flock. But that means no more wild animals in these trees. Now, I'd like to just call your attention over here to the detail of this game. Because this is that ox that I was talking about earlier. And he is dragging along one of the logs, one of the timber that we have, being escorted by this guy over here. And they're going to bring that all the way over to the construction site. So that is the forester's camp. This thing needs one more resource, and then they can start building. And you can actually see them building the building over here. There is just a beautiful animation. I really like it, and this is done for every single building that I've seen so far. So a lot of attention to detail is going into this game. Now the resources have been delivered, and that means we can start building this thing out. The more of these unassigned families I have, the faster this is gonna go. As for these other ones, well, we're gonna have to be a little patient because we only have 1 ox and people cannot bring this timber over all by themselves. They're gonna have to wait for the ox to actually do that. Now that the logging camp has been built, I need to assign a family over here. So, essentially a worker unit. This way, I'm going to actually take down logs and start building my supplies. If you don't have any of these families attached, the building is going to be idle. In the Advanced tab, you can also permanently assign one of your livestock. So I can permanently assign the ox to work here. And with that, speed up production on logging camp. The downside is I only have 1 ox. And if I send that ox over here, I'm not going to be able to have him work on anything else. So getting resources over here, for example, to this burgage plot, well, that's going to take a bit of time. And if you don't have an ox, it just takes forever because you don't have enough transport capability. It's not the end of the world, though. You can, if you want to, upgrade this. You can upgrade the hitching post into a small stable, and then you can buy an additional ox. That comes from your wealth. Your regional wealth will take a hit. It's going to cost you 20, but I only have 50, so I need to be a bit careful about where exactly I want to spend my resources. Later on, if you're getting to tier 2 of your burgage plots, you can start getting more resources, more regional wealth. You're basically getting taxes as income. But up until such a time, this is very limited. Now you can already hear the logging camp going off to work. The logging camp is going to store logs locally. If this storage is full, the building essentially stops working. So at such a point, I'm going to have to actually store these resources somewhere else. And you do that in 2 different logistics buildings. We have the granary. This is where you basically store all of your food. And then we have the storehouse where you store, well, everything else. You also have a pack station, allowing you to send regions different resources. It's going to use mules, much later game. And we have the hitching post. These guys I can relocate because I already have one. So I can take this hitching post and relocate it here. Let's say... Yeah, let's say here. Quite close to the crossing, because I'm expecting to expand a little bit this way and a little bit this way. And maybe have some housing over there. These resources, these supplies, they don't do very well if they get wet. Especially bread. Well, I'm not sure if you've ever had wet bread, but it's not great. So I need to make sure that the bread is going to get stored. And for that, we're going to need the granary. Over here we have the first burgage plot complete. With this, I now have a couple of requirements. My people would very much appreciate it if they could actually drink anything. Water, preferably. And later game, of course, things like ale. They also want to have a church. They want to have the ability to either buy or sell food, fuel, and clothing. Once you have all of those needs met, this thing can level up. You can also have a backyard extension, and that's that little additional part in the back of the house. Low tier, you can have a vegetable garden, but then again, it's going to cost you 15 of your regional wealth. You can have a chicken coop, or you can have a goat shed. This is going to give you vegetables, eggs, or hides. Hides get turned into clothing. Having additional sources of food is, of course, going to be very valuable. Because at some point, maybe I am unable to do further hunting or unable to do further foraging in this tree line. This berry deposit is seasonal, as I mentioned, so in winter it will not work. This means I'm going to have to bring another source of resources or another source of food, so maybe a vegetable garden isn't that bad of an idea. It might, however, have a bit of a downside, because people do need to work here, which means I have less workforce available. And that is where your resource management comes in. Where are you going to spend your resources? In this case, let's say your human capital. Where's your family going to work? Do you want to have them work on the plot here, which they will do themselves, or do you want to have them work at the logging camp, or at the forager hut, or at the hunting camp? I only have so many people. Yes, I don't need to converse with this gentleman right now. Again, look at just the detail over here as the house is coming up. It's not that they snap their fingers and the house is done. Every single beam that goes up, you can see a lot of detail goes into the building. Now, I am running this thing on ultra graphics, so this is pretty much the best that it's going to look. Other systems might not do as well. And if you're curious to see my system specs, you can find those down below in the description. These guys are almost done. We do need yet another unit of timber. And I think it might be valuable to get this thing upgraded. But right now I'm trying to produce so many different things at the same time. It's, it's a bit much for my one ox. So the poor guy is going to have to do overtime. Getting another log from the logging camp. And then taking that over to this burgage plot to start building up additional things. Or actually over here to the hitching post, because this is where I want to have it right now. If I want to upgrade it, I would like to do that, but I need to get planks. So, planks, how do we get those? That comes from the saw pit. It transforms timber into planks. If you want to, you can put this thing like all the way over there, but logic says have it close to the timber site. Because with that, you're able to just basically drag it across the street and start turning it into planks. Let's have this over here. And that way I still reserve enough room for a forester's hut over there. So I can start replanting. But this is a low priority item. This is also a fairly low priority item. Because I'd like to have a bit more housing done completed sooner. And this food production. Because we're still looking at only 3 months of food. And while months take a bit of time in this era or in this game, before you know it, you're gonna be in autumn, and then suddenly winter hits you, and you might not be prepared. So better have food and not need it, rather than the other way around. As for setting up the food, or rather storing the food, let's put the granary kind of in the middle of town. It says I don't have enough goods. I cannot build it, because I don't have enough timber stored up. So let's put one more unit, one more family to work here. So we're going to get more timber. and with that be able to start building things faster. It does mean I have, let's say, a construction unit less, but that's fine. The forager hut can house 4 families. Let's have one of them work here. Still gives me 2. So let's say one's going to be building and the other one is going to be transporting resources around. As for the other one, let's say it's a lower priority right now. I don't need to have all of these things completed at the same time. And thankfully, these hunting camps do not require additional timber. Now let's set up that water, shall we? We have a well. I can build that for 1 timber. It also enables firefighting. And considering that I'm planning on, let's say, having a town center somewhere over here, so a market as well as the well itself, this is going to be a pretty good place to do that. There are requirements. Underground water, as indicated by these currents. So this is not a building that you can plonk down anywhere. You're going to have to use these underground water supplies. If you don't have them, tough luck. So let's prioritize this. I now have 2 families working at the logging camp, so I'm getting a bit more of the timber. I have the forager hut operational. The hunting camp is idle, because I simply don't need it at the moment. And the saw pit and the forester's hut are ready. Let's get 1 family to work over here, so I can start getting a few more planks. That is going to allow me to upgrade the hitching post into a stable, and then I can get another ox. Right now, there's only 1 stable space here. So I can only have 1 ox or horse, and I would very much like to have a second one, because it definitely speeds up your gathering and production. Bit by bit, my little settlement is growing, and I've now built the granary. Now, something to note about the granary is that if you don't have somebody working here, if you don't have a family assigned to it, your granary is going to do nothing. You need to get a family in here so that the granary is going to start filling up from, in this case, the forager hut. Otherwise, the pantry here is just going to store your resources until it's full, at which point it stops working. So make sure that you have somebody working at the granary. At my current level of food production, though, I don't need to have somebody working here full time. So I'm going to have to do, let's say, a bit of micromanagement, and every now and then assign a family member if I notice that the forager hut is filling up a lot. If that is not the case, you can just keep going and keep the granary unassigned for a little while. Now, something that my people have been telling me, they're still homeless. Yes, that's being worked on. I'm building another burgage plot here, here, and here. But they also would very much like a place to sell their goods. In order to do that, you need a marketplace. This is basically the central part of your town, or at least it can be. So I'm going to make it quite large. And that should give me plenty of opportunities for growth later. This is going to have 19 stalls, and now I have 28 stalls. That should be more than enough for future growth. So let's have that reserved for the stalls. There we go. That's what the marketplace can eventually turn into. So that's why I'm going to mostly build it in the middle of my town. I might be able to just expand here and then expand there. And that should keep the marketplace nice and middle of the town. This marketplace doesn't really require you to do much. It just requires you to have one. Because now people are going to start to sell their food. Sorry, their fuel and their food. And this way you're fulfilling the requirements from the burgage plots that says, hey guys, we need fuel, we need food stalls. You don't need to do much, the people will do it all for you. This thing has 27 stalls. Oh, look, here comes one now. Jacob over here, he's a forager. He's working on his stall. I love this stuff. I think we might have a bit of a bare bones stall here. Oh, he's still building. Boom. Stall constructed. It's that easy. Now, this guy is going to sell food. So he has a little pantry over there. And with that, my food variety should be immediately fulfilled. The more different foods you have, the more variety score you'll get. Early game, like right now, I might have berries. I might have the occasional bread because I started with it. That's about it. So there's not that much going on here. Look at this guy. Here comes Jacob again, transporting the berries right into the food stall. And everything is modeled. Yep, there we go. We have berries. He's transported a whole 1 berries. Now, the berries are coming directly from the forager hut. I suspect you can also get them from the granary, but since we have them over here in the forager hut, might as well take it from there. At this point, I have 4 houses. This one house is a very large plot, and I did this intentionally, because this is going to give me a bit of best of both worlds. I can still have one of those bonus plots in the back, like a backyard extension, but I can also expand the living space. Double the family count. That's going to remove that little shed that was over there, and it's going to allow another family to move in here. Of course, we'll first have to build that. Now notice that the logging camp is filling up. Hold on, it's going a bit quick. The logging camp is filling up. You can actually see the amount of logs that we have over there. You can also see our little farm over here in the back. Right now, it's probably not really going to be generating that much food yet, but we'll get there in the end. These guys are working on the construction, and once I've done that, I actually have a little bit too much housing space, but that's fine. I'd rather have too much than too little. Because if you don't have enough housing, your people are going to go, hey, we don't have a place to live, we're homeless, and as such, we don't want to recommend people to live here, so your approval score goes down. You need at least 50% in order to start attracting new population. With this new level that I've achieved, I now have a development point. This is, let's say, the tech tree. It's going to allow you to develop in a couple of different directions. Over here we have foreign supplies, allowing me to import resources. It's a permanent market stall, for example, the firewood cart. If I have enough regional wealth, it's going to provide a passive income of firewood. Over here we have basic armor making, charcoal burning. So let's say this is a bit more industrial. And some of these things are still in early access, so you might not even have access to them. Over here we have beekeeping, forest management, as well as trapping. So this is a bit more of, let's say, hunting and gathering. Here is farming. We got an orchardry, sheep breeding, or the heavy plow. And over here, foreign supplies. So this is, let's say, more of the trade department. Considering that I have an okay amount of resources in the forest, I think we might be able to make use of this. But there's not that much. Like, there's not that many resources. But there is this good deposit of clay. There is iron. There is stone. Maybe I can develop into that direction. So that would mean I can go for charcoal. Yeah, I don't really want to work on weaponry just yet, because I think it's a bit of a later tier weapon, or later tier research. Alternatively, farms, but at the moment I don't feel like I have a whole lot of families to use on farms. Like, I don't have enough people to work the farm. So let's just use forest management for now. Double the capacity of all berry deposits. And with that, my berry deposit can go up to 128. So that's nice, and as long as it's growing, excellent. More food for me. I now have a bit of another problem though. Fuel. I am getting more food, but I'm not getting fuel. By the way, take note of how many trees have already been taken down here. My logging camp is hard at work, deforesting the whole area. So it might be time to start assigning somebody here, but right now, I think... Actually, have I built that? I don't think I've built that. I need another building. Yes, yes. I need one that's going to allow me to get firewood. So the woodcutters... what's that? Woodcutters hut? Lodge. Let's expand the road a bit. Should also make it a bit easier to transport additional resources than the woodcutters hut. If you don't have firewood, your people will just freeze over when winter comes. Some workplaces, such as an oven, where you might be able to bake bread, will also require this. So having firewood is critical. If you don't have it, good luck, especially later game. So that's a first look at Manor Lords. In the next episode, we're going to continue building out this settlement, looking to gather more families, because we have the living space. I need more families to continue building the settlement. So let's see if I can make this place attractive to live in. Hope you guys enjoy what you're seeing. If you are, have a look down below in the description to find the Steam link to the page to wishlist it if you like it. And if you have any questions, by all means, post those down below in the comments and I'll see if I can answer your questions in the next video. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more videos.